You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Live fans, we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Vikings. We know that their quarterback, Kirk Cousins, has refused to get the jab. He wants nothing to do with the vaccine, it seems. He says he's going to do his own research. But apparently that is not good enough for the Vikings. And now they're making desperate moves now to get more of their players vaccinated, folks, because as of right now, as a few weeks ago, I should say, they had the lowest vaccination rate in the NFL. Now, the NFL was averaging somewhere around 90% of players. This is as of a few weeks ago. But the Minnesota Vikings were lagging somewhere around 65% of their players were fully vaccinated, dead last in the NFL. Now, the head coach has come out and he's been pretty vocal. Hey, you guys get the jab. And it does not seem to be working. So now the Minnesota Vikings have made a desperate move to get players the jab, or at least convince them to get the jab. It says here on Pro Football Talk by Mike Florio, Vikings will have epidemiologists speak to team about vaccines. Now, do I actually think this is going to work? No, I do not. At this point, if a player has not gotten the jab, considering that week 1 of the NFL is coming up pretty fast here, you're not going to convince these players. I believe there is nothing anybody can say to Kirk Cousins to convince him to get the jab at this point. But let's move on here. Let's read what this says. As evidenced by the number of players wearing masks on the sidelines during Saturday night's preseason loss to the Colts, the Vikings still have plenty of players who have not gotten vaccinated. The Vikings will make another run at changing minds on Monday. Via NFL media, epidemiologist and infectious disease expert Michael Osterholm will speak to the team on Monday. They are so desperate now, they got to bring in an outside guy that none of these players know to convince them to get the jab. The issue of vaccination hesitation among Vikings players has gotten quiet in recent days. Peter King described the situation in Monday's Football Morning in America as a comatose issue. Today's session would wake it up again. Quote, I went pretty hard there for a while with our quarterback, Kirk Cousins, and a bunch of other guys, good players who are not vaccinated, Coach Mike Zimmer said per King. I've said my piece. They've got their heels dug in. I think it would have showed them what could happen when we have one quarterback for practice and we had to bring in 2 guys off the street. But they're not going to change. I just said, the heck with it. I'm done talking about it. And you know what? At that point, man, if they don't want to get it, they don't want to get it. They're just going to follow the protocols. And apparently the players that don't want the jab, they're just following the protocols. Now, we said it before many times. It should be up to you what you want to put in your body. It should be up to you. Now, as of today, the Pfizer vaccine has FDA approval. It's the first one out of all of the quote-unquote vaccines to be approved. But however, Kirk Cousins still doesn't want it. A lot of other players, they still don't want it. So what can you do? Just let them follow the protocols. Let them make their own decision at this point. You know, Mike Zimmer, going after Kirk Cousins and all these other players is not going to help. Now you're going to bring in an outside person that probably none of these players know anything about. They just know he's some type of an infectious disease expert, and that's pretty much it. But we do know, guys, that these world-class athletes, they have almost little to nothing to really worry about when it comes to the virus because they're in great shape, they usually eat well, and they're pretty young. So I'm just telling the truth about that. And the virus mostly affects people that are overweight, compromised, health conditions, overweight, older, for the most part. Okay. But it goes on here. It says that's what makes the decision to bring in an expert to talk about the situation so surprising. Cousins won't be changing his mind. Others likely won't be changing their minds, even though not being vaccinated means 1, daily testing, and 2, a minimum absence of 10 days if a player tests positive. So even Mike Florio here is saying that no matter what's said, Kirk Cousins and all the other players that don't want to get the jab, they're not going to change their minds. He's right about that. Cornerback Patrick Peterson has tried to get his new teammates to realize the obvious link between vaccination and availability to no avail, which means that the Vikings will be at constant risk of losing one or more key players before a game that potentially becomes a loss without them. And it's one loss, and that can tip the scales from a playoff berth. Now, none of us believe that any NFL games are going to be lost. There's too much money at stake because one thing, if a game is canceled, guess what? The fans lose out on their money. The NFL, I believe, is not going to let that happen. I just don't see that happening whatsoever. But it goes on. It says another argument that Zimmer, Peterson, and others can now make is this. FDA approval officially has arrived for the Pfizer vaccine. I just talked about that. Of course, those who have hidden behind the lack of FDA approval undoubtedly will pivot to another talking point or possibly just claim without a shred of proof that the FDA approval process was in some way rigged. Now, that's Mike Florio. We know he's a Corona bro out there. He's just pushing his argument on that. That's not my opinion, but that's just what he's saying. But finally, it says, any unvaccinated player on the Vikings or other teams need to realize that after the next preseason game, a mini bye is coming. Vaccinated players can leave town. Unvaccinated players can. I didn't even know that. Really? Is that true? I guess it is. Between Dr. Osterholm's comment and the FDA approval and the ability to enjoy the bye week that replaces what was the 4th regular season game, maybe a few guys will finally realize that it's time to do the right thing for themselves, teams, and society. No matter how many have that effigy, it won't be enough. Now, I don't believe that this is going to change the minds of any of these players. I really don't. Mike Florio, big time Corona bro, even he has admitted that bringing in this epidemiologist won't really do much of anything. I've said it before, man, at this point, if those guys want to get the jab, they're going to get it. If you want to get it, that's fine. If you don't want to get it, that's fine too. You do what's best for you. You check with your healthcare provider to do what's best for you. But that's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? Black and White Live fans, the Minnesota Vikings seem to be running out of options to get players fully jabbed up before the first regular season game. Now, I did not know that unvaccinated players couldn't leave town for this first quote unquote bye week after the week 3 preseason game. I did not know that. I don't know how the Players Association actually agree with that, but oh well, I guess it is what it is. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about all this in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to Black and White Live, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.